Welcome to the Court of History. I'm Sidney Blumenthal. The court is now in session. I am here with Sean Wilentz, my colleague from Princeton University. Sean, retribution seems to be the main note that Trump and his crowd are always striking. And just in the last 24 hours, they hit it again with an projected indictment against one of our recent guests on the Court of History, Congressman Eric Swalwell, Democrat of California, supposedly for mortgage fraud.
Apparently, mortgage fraud seems to be rampant all across Congress. Everyone.
Yeah, apparently people who represent districts far away have houses in Washington, too. So
yes,
they're being charged with these mortgage charge things. This may well be Trump's clever way of electing Eric Swalwell the next governor of California.
Yes, yeah. Well, you know, what can I say? Retribution, I mean, it's not just a political thing. It's in the soul of what they do. These are people who are, as I've been saying, I mean, we're beyond a question of politics now. We're now deeply into a kind of culture of retribution, from which these people spring. I mean, Trump in his own way, going all the way back to Studio 54 and that kind of loose world. And I suppose, I don't know, Stephen Miller from his place and, Nick Fuentes from his place. But retribution is actually one of the things that all of these different streams that feed into the administration actually have in common. So it is very much Trump going after his people, but it actually is, I think, is more of a signifies a certain class of people that are now in power.
Yeah, it's a major motive animating Trump. And we now have somebody who knows a great deal about it with us, and that is Jonathan Karl. He is the ABC News chief Washington correspondent and co-anchor of This Week with George Stephanopoulos. He's the former president of the White House Correspondents Association. And we have to note here on the Court of History that he began his illustrious journalism career as a reporter researcher at the New Republic when I was a senior editor, and Sean was a contributing editor. So John is not only a friend of the Court of History, a friend of the court, he is a kind of relative. And more than that, John has written 4 books on Trump. He's covered him from the beginning. And his latest book, a well-earned bestseller, is entitled Retribution, Donald Trump and the Campaign That Changed America. This book is an embarrassment of riches. I mean, one could write a book about Trump, maybe the 5th book John writes to be called an embarrassment of riches about Trump. But this one contains so many stories, not only about the campaign, but afterwards, and really the whole cast of characters around Trump. I want to actually start, John, with Trump after Trump before the 2024 campaign in early 2021, January 6th, because that's a big motive for his retribution. Mm-hmm. The BBC recently was in turmoil over splicing pieces of Trump's speech to the crowd on the White House on that day together to create a misimpression. But nonetheless, your book has a lot of interesting information about what Trump's attitude was on January 6th. I note that Dan Scavino, you write about him and what he knew about what Trump was doing and thinking on January 6th while the crowd was assaulting the Capitol. Tell us who Dan Scavino is and what he learned.
Yeah, well, first off, it's an honor to be here, by the way, in the court, and Sidney, Sean, my time at the New Republic, that one glorious year immediately after graduating college as a reporter researcher, was probably the pinnacle of my at least it was as much fun as I ever had, being at that magazine at a real time of relevance for the New Republic. I mean, it was the magazine that everybody read in Washington, and was constantly surprising, great reporting and great writing. So it's great to be back here and to be with both of you. Look, what I tried to do there's a section of this book where I tried to really find out as much as I could about Jack Smith's investigations. There were the two sets of indictments, one on January 6th and one on the classified documents case. And I tried to find out what a trial would have looked like if either one of those or both of those had gone into a trial. And one of the really remarkable things that I learned was what Dan Scavino had told investigators under oath as part of that investigation.
Jack Smith's investigation.
Jack Smith's investigation. And Dan Scavino, under oath, was quite candid and quite vivid in his description of what he was doing and what Trump was doing on January 6th.
Tell us.
Well, he describes Trump being in this dining room adjacent to the Oval Office where he has his television. And he spends much of his time there. Actually, in the second term, he spends maybe even more of his time in that room. And he was sitting there riveted by the television, and not listening to all the others. He had various people coming in and out saying, "Hey, look, boss, we've got to put a statement out. We've got to do something to tell the people that are attacking the Capitol not to do this." And Trump is ignoring all of it and focused intently on the television, watching the attack unfold. And according to Scavino, he is, what are his emotions? He's angry, but he's not angry that people are attacking Capitol police officers, that they're smashing the windows of the Capitol, that they're breaking in to the Capitol building and defiling that symbol of American democracy. He is angry at the very thing that the rioters are angry about, and that is Trump's loss in the election. And Scavino, explains all this and says it all. And to me, it was just, imagine Dan Scavino being on the witness stand, telling all that. It's one thing for me to report that and find that out, but we never got to hear that trial. Now, a second, you asked me to explain who Dan Scavino is, and this is very important for those who don't know. Dan Scavino has been with Trump longer than any other single advisor in the White House. Dan Scavino has been with Trump since he was a teenager. He was literally his caddy. And when Trump decided to run for president in 2015, that campaign staff only had a handful of people. And Dan Scavino was one of the first of those handful of employees. And Dan Scavino was the one who, I think you could make the case, was more important than any of them in helping Trump get elected president, because Dan Scavino's job on that campaign was to run the Twitter account, was to run the Instagram account, create the little videos he put out on Instagram, do the tweets. In fact, Dan Scavino is the one, and to this day, the only person who is authorized to tweet on or post on X, post and on any of these social media accounts on Trump's behalf. So as close as an advisor as there exists. He's currently the deputy chief of staff, by the way, and the head of the Office of Presidential Personnel. So he's a very influential guy, but it's more that he knows the psyche of Trump, and he's the trusted advisor.
He's a kind of alter ego now.
Yeah.
Truth Social.
He's at real Donald Trump. He sort of really is at real Donald Trump.
He is. Yeah. He is. Yeah.
So then you got an amazing revelation in your book about Mike Pence, the vice president, and what happens to him on January 6th with Trump, and then his private notes, handwritten notes that you have reported.
I mean, first, Sid, I wrote a whole book about January 6th where I immersed myself in everything. I didn't know about these notes for that book. I consumed, like all of us, those January 6 committee hearings, 10 plus hearings, prime time, and they discovered so much they didn't have access to these notes. Mike Pence wrote a memoir about all of this. He quotes what he wrote in his notes, but he didn't, just a small portion of it. He never produced these notes. So I got a hold of these handwritten notes. What I find really extraordinary about them is simply where they are written. This is at 10 o'clock in the morning when Pence is preparing to go to the Capitol to preside over the certification of the election on January 6, 2021. And he gets a phone call from Donald Trump, who's making one last effort to berate him and pressure him and force him to do something completely mind-blowing, which is to use his ceremonial role presiding over the Congress for that certification to overturn the election results. And this pressure campaign had been going on for weeks, but now it's like the last shot. And the conversation is so disturbing to Mike Pence that he does something that he does not normally do in any of his there's no evidence that he did this with any other, Trump phone calls. He starts taking notes of what Trump said and what he said in return. And he doesn't even have the paper in front of him. So he grabs his day timer, his calendar, his desk calendar, and you can see the notes are written on the paper calendar for January 6, 2021. And he's just scribbling out, and you see, the threats that Trump is saying. You will go down as a wimp. You listen to the wrong people, and Pence answers back, I listen to my heart and I listen to my mind. He writes, it doesn't take courage to break the law. It takes courage to uphold the law. He's giving this real-time description of this bonkers call that he's getting from the president of the United States. And then there's one thing that I note. I got this and I was looking through it and I was trying to read the handwriting because he's obviously writing it very quickly. It's legible, but you have to really kind of look at it. And then there's this like marking, and I realize it's like he's writing an angry face emoji. and when it's hard for me, like, is it Trump's anger or is it Pence's anger that he's talking, that this is happening? Anyway,
Trump calls him a wimp and a pussy.
Yeah. Now he didn't write that because he's a very proper guy.
No, he wouldn't do that.
He didn't write that in the notes, but we do know that he said that. Yes, he did say.
And Trump
I think his action was "Don't be a pussy." I think is what it was said, but Pence doesn't actually write that in the notes.
Yeah, Trump knew he was endangered too in real time.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, and that's clear. And again, did nothing to do about it. I actually asked Trump about this. I interviewed Trump, expansive interview on March 18th of 2021 down in Mar-a-Lago. And I asked him, were you worried about him? Were you worried about Pence? And he's like, no, I heard he was fine. I was like, no, because you heard those chants. I mean, it was awful. They were saying, hang Mike Pence. Right. They were saying, and he says to me, that's because they were angry. I mean, you can't steal an election. That the people were angry. So he doesn't even express, even after the fact when we've known it all, he's actually not only not condemning it, but he's explaining why they were angry. Well, the people were angry. I mean, what do you expect?
Yeah. So now Trump is elected and he's got to form a cabinet. And the first person he names Attorney General is Matt Gaetz.
Yeah.
We now know from the report that has just come out that Matt Gaetz was attempting to suppress the fact that he had had sex with a 17-year-old homeless girl and had abused her. And there was an investigation going on in the House Ethics Committee. And it was part of the reason he was angry at then Speaker Kevin McCarthy.
Kevin McCarthy, yeah.
Yeah, and the person who is riding high, you write, from the Gaetz investigation is none other than one of Trump's attorneys, Boris Epshteyn. This is not Jeffrey Epstein. This is Epstein.
Epstein, yes.
Yeah, tell us about
Tell
what
us about
happened
who he
to
is.
Boris Epshteyn. This is a really telling story of the inner life of Trump world.
Yeah, Boris is a fascinating and important figure, and frankly, it's not really appreciated how influential he is in all of what is going on now. Boris, first of all, Georgetown law graduate. He worked briefly for Milbank Tweed, so he's got some credentials in the law. He worked at the White House briefly in 2017, and then was pushed out by Chief of Staff John Kelly, I believe, is how that happened. Check me on that, but he was definitely pushed out and kind of operated in Trump world. Where he becomes really critical is after the 2020 election, where he jumps in full blown to the effort to overturn the election. He's by the way, he was indicted in the Arizona case brought by the Arizona Attorney General. He's mentioned, he's not indicted, but he is mentioned all over the place in the Georgia case. He was at Trump's side and telling him, they're egging him on to do anything possible to overturn the election. And when Trump leaves in disgrace in January 20th of 2021, he's banned from Twitter. He's banned from all social media. The big corporations are refusing to donate anything to anybody that was involved in his efforts to overturn the election results. His own cabinet, several of them had called for him to resigned on January 6th. I mean, nobody is around Trump except for Boris. I mean, Boris is there, and Boris spends time with him at Mar-a-Lago, and he helps him begin the effort to get back. He's the guy behind all of the lawsuits that you see, like when Trump sued the Pulitzer Committee and each member of the Pulitzer Committee for giving the Pulitzer Prizes to the New York Times and the Washington Post for their work on Russia and Trump. That's Boris's lawsuit.
Boris has a Russian background, doesn't he?
Yes.
Boris was born in Moscow. I recount that some of the, if you've ever spent any time around Boris, there's a decent chance that his phone is going to ring and he's going to start speaking Russian. And he'll tell you he's talking to his mom, which may well be true, but he's
Vladimir.
I'm not here. I'm not. He loves to eat at the Palm, and he's very proud that there's a cartoon drawing of him on the wall at the Palm. You can find it over by the coat rack when you're coming in.
Next time I'm there, I'll be sure to look up Boris. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's the background of Boris, but he played a very key role in the effort to get Matt Gaetz, because there was a transition team in place. Obviously, Lutnick was running it. They actually did some vetting. They had a team of lawyers. I mean, there was a process in place. But Matt Gaetz was nowhere on anybody's list as an potential attorney general. One Republican senator said, "I didn't know he was an attorney until he was nominated for attorney general." He did go to William and Mary, by the way, Gaetz. Anyway, it's such a secret effort to get Trump because Trump is interviewing some really well-credentialed, serious candidates for attorney general. I mean, Jay Clayton. He's got what's his first name? Jufra. These are like people from serious law, major law firms, and Trump's looking out and he's realizing these guys aren't going to be my, Roy Cohn. I mean, these guys. Yeah. I need somebody that's going to be my fighter. So Boris, Steve Bannon are quietly working with Gaetz to get this to Trump and say, this is who you should do. It's so secretive that they have a fake name that they use when they're talking about Gaetz, even in their own internal. I don't know what the name is, but it's they didn't want anybody to know. And then Trump, voila, announces it and totally shocks everybody on his campaign team, except for Boris and Steve Bannon.
Yeah, but Boris is undone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, and by the way, this is a riveting part of the book, and
This is an incredible
this
story that involves Scott Bessent and a
yeah.
semi-secretive Palm Beach group based on a yacht.
Yeah. I mean, this is really this is
movie stuff.
Yeah, you
this is
can't make
movie
this
stuff.
up, or you
This
can
is-
make it up.
This is movie. This is Fear and Loathing on the campaign transition trail. I mean, this is really mind-blowing stuff. But there is this kind of alternative or the real MAGA transition team that is operating on a yacht owned by a retired coal magnate. His name is John Rich. John Rich. I actually went and visited this yacht and met Mr. Rich and some of the people that were there. Caroline Wren is big on this. She probably know her
for funder of January 6th.
Yeah, and a real figure with Carrie Lake's campaigns out in Arizona, and she's
Charlie Kirk and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. And they are basically holding meetings, and they're very much pushing Kash Patel and Gates and Scott Bessent. And then like they go to dinner because John Rich is a member at Mar-a-Lago. They do their dinners at Mar-a-Lago. The after parties are on this yacht. I mean, it's really quite a scene. It's right down the intercoastal waterway from Mar-a-Lago. But Boris, and some of this has been out there, but I give you a kind of a detailed accounting, including my interactions with Boris at this time, which are, I mean, really kind of wild. But Boris gets accused of shaking down potential cabinet picks to help them get chosen. By the way, Boris is there for a lot of them, like Attorney General, when the candidates for Attorney General meet with Trump, the way it works is Boris is sitting across from the desk. Lutnick, who is technically in charge of the transition, is sitting across from the desk. Elon Musk is there across from the desk. And these are the people that Trump is, and then the candidate,
Yeah. Let me just interject, and I don't want to stop the narrative of the story, but you also have a lot on Elon Musk in the book about how he contributed about $300 million and says, without me, Trump would have lost the election, and how he created fake political action committees in Michigan and Pennsylvania to get Jews and Muslims to vote against the Democrat by putting out messages about how the Democratic candidate would either be pro-Israel or pro-Muslim in the respective areas, false ads. And then, but back to the narrative, please. We're back on the yacht.
But by the way, and it was just as cynical as you could possibly imagine. So in Michigan, they're accusing Kamala Harris of being too pro-Israel,
right?
And being part of, and her Jewish husband and all of that.
Yes, all that.
And then in Pennsylvania, they're accusing her of being a Hamas supporter and anti-Israel. I mean, it's just as cynical as you could possibly get. And they also had one group was called the RBG something, and I mean, it was
suggest it was Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Yeah. I mean, just nuts. So
Musk is behind it. He's paying for the whole deal.
And by the way, one other thing that's with Musk, you remember he was doing this $1 million giveaways every day.
Yeah.
And it was a random drawing, and somebody would get $1 million, and this way you'd get more people to sign up and do it. Well, he got brought to court by the Philly DA because you cannot have a raffle, you cannot have a sweepstakes unless you get a permit. Blah, blah. So it was kind of a technical violation. This is what they brought him up on. This is the day before the election. And Elon Musk's attorney says, actually, we didn't violate that because sweepstakes is a game of chance. We knew who the winner was every day.
Yeah, we're innocent because we
were lying. Because we were lying through our teeth. We are innocent.
All right, back to Boris. Let's get ready. What happens to Boris?
So Boris, they do an investigation. Bessent shares his tale of Boris allegedly trying to shake him down.
Is Boris trying to shake down Scott Bessent?
Well, it's a couple of different things. So there are one thing. The biggest ticket item is he wanted him to invest several $1 million in this 3x3 basketball league that was going on. I mean, you really can't make it up. And then it was. I forget. It's in the book. It was the exact amount to be on a retainer. Hire me. I'll help you navigate around.
40,000 a month.
Yeah. There you go.
It's constant grift. I mean,
go on. So what happens, John?
So the Dave Warrington, who by the way is right now the White House counsel, but then he was the campaign and transition lawyer, writes a report detailing Boris's alleged efforts to shake these people down, and the stuff with Epstein. I mean, with Epshteyn and Besant is rather amazing, because at one point, encouraged by the way by J.D. Vance's people, they try to get the evidence on Boris by taping a phone call.
That's illegal, probably illegal.
In Florida, it is a two-party consent state, so you have to.
So it was illegal.
Right? Yeah, you can't do it. Right.
Yeah. Where he says, "Hey, can we do this now?" It's in Trump is nearing the decision on picking a Treasury Secretary. Lutnick is battling for it. Besant, somebody, a couple other people, and Boris is like, "It's too fucking late, man. You should have done it." And there's a great line where he says, "Because I'm Boris fucking Epshteyn," but anyway, this memo is done, and the memo concludes, and I have the exact language of the last 3 paragraphs of this memo, where Dave Warrington is recommending, on behalf of the transition team, is recommending to Trump that he cease all contact with Boris. Not just that he fire him and not have him, not bring him into the White House, but cease all contact. And if you don't, we risk a major, embarrassment, or worse, a problem with the law. And Boris is out for 48, 72 hours. I mean, he is, and I just happened to be meeting with him at this time while this is going on. I didn't know the extent of it all. I'd been hearing these reports, which is why I really wanted to talk to him. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I described the kind of frenetic communications and setting up this meeting in a hallway at the Four Seasons on Palm Beach. I mean, it's all kind of really.
They leaked this to John Solomon, right?
Yeah. Well, they leak it to John Solomon, who of course is very much a Trump friendly. I was going to say journalist, but a writer.
Writer.
And
who was involved in the Ukraine shakedown.
Yes.
So to Trump's first impeachment.
So they leak it to John Solomon. He writes it up. Trump actually does a brief interview with John Solomon, where he says, he's kind of resigned. He's like, well, I guess some people just try to take advantage of you when they're around you. And he seems like he's really I'm done. But Boris is back within a couple of days, and I think he's back. First of all, I have to say there were all kinds of crazy rumors about $50,000 that one person was gave, who ended up getting nominated to another position. I tried to chase this stuff down, and I couldn't. They did a very good. If the allegations were true, they did a very good job of covering their tracks. But Boris, I think, is back because Boris was the guy that was with Trump when nobody else was. And by the way, Boris's role in all of those legal cases, he's never the lawyer that's arguing the case in court for Trump, but he's the guy that hires all the lawyers. So he's the guy that brings in, Todd Blanche and Emil Bovee and the dozens of other lawyers that were involved in all this. And he's coordinating the legal team. And at all times, his advice to Trump basically comes down to fucking fight him harder. Right. Fight him harder. And so Trump, Trump loves having Boris around.
That sounds like Roy Cohn right there.
Yeah.
So he's one of the, Roy Cohns. So now we come to the nomination of Kristi Noem as Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. And someone gets to Trump about this around the entire process, named
Yeah.
Corey Lewandowski.
Yeah, you've heard of him, yeah.
Oh yeah,
Familiar
the pride
with
of New
him.
Hampshire.
Tell us how this happens. You got this story in your book.
So Corey was the first campaign manager in 2016. So when Scavino, I'd said he was one of the first employees. Very shortly after Scavino, it's Corey Lewandowski, or basically at about the same time. He's fired from the in 2016, but he very much remains in Trump's orbit. And
he's fired because he's physically
he's hitting people
in crowds.
I mean, we all have things, right? Corey's got a very colorful biography. But he's a just like Boris, and they're very different people, actually.
Wasn't he? He had a job. How did he begin in New Hampshire? Was he a toll taker?
I forget that detail. He used to work for Bob Ney on Capitol Hill. Bob Ney, who ended up going to prison in the all the controversy surrounding Abramoff, and then I think Ney became a monk or something in Nepal. Do I have that right? But anyway, so but Corey's been around, kind of the Republican politics for a while. When he comes in, he wouldn't have been high on a lot of other lists for campaign manager, but Trump at this point, is not exactly considered a serious candidate. And there you have. So Corey is a longtime Trump loyalist, and Trump, and he's very close to Kristi Noem. I don't want to.
Dare we say an intimate?
I don't want to. I mean, I don't want to speculate as to exactly how close, but let's just say they're very close. And Trump suddenly puts out the announcement on Truth Social that he's making Kristi Noem his choice for Homeland Security Secretary. She's not on the list. She wasn't. I mean, they had all these other possible candidates. She has no experience in law enforcement. She is the governor of South Dakota. As I write, she's also banned from almost 20% of the state because the 9 Native American tribes in South Dakota have banned her from their reservations. So she's got she's so I guess South Dakota does have state police or whatever, but she has no real experience for this massive job of Secretary of Homeland Security.
Yes, Steve Bannon goes crazy, doesn't he?
Yeah. Well, first, what somebody I learned is just kind of surprised by this, sees Trump right after at Mar-a-Lago and says, "So, wow, Kristi Noem, huh? What's up with that?" And Trump's answer is, "I did it for Corey. It's the only thing he asked. I mean, the poor guy just wanted one thing, right? I mean." It's not one of these people that's asking for a lot, just one thing. So Bannon, I talked to 2 days after this in an interview at what we used to be known as the Breitbart Embassy, Bannon's house on Capitol Hill, right behind the Supreme Court. And Bannon is just exasperated. He's like, and by the way, if you listen to my audiobook, I put the sound from the Bannon interview in the audiobook because it's so over the top. He's like sputtering in like disbelief and rage. Are you kidding me? We still have the war on terror, the Secret Service, the border. He starts listing all the things that come under the department. And he's like, and you make her, no law enforcement? Are you kidding me? And Bannon's anger at this, though, is not directed at Trump, but at Corey. It's like, how could Corey ask for this?
Well, a lot of people hate Corey. Roger Stone does not care for Corey.
He's a very but one person who doesn't hate Corey is Donald Trump.
Right.
Yes. The only man who matters.
This is quite a favor.
By the way, this is just an aside, but the infighting in Trump world is always been, legendary, but it's amazing the people who hates who. Like Roger Stone also absolutely despises Steve Bannon. I mean, they are like mortal enemies. So it's you need a chart. So who
hates who.
Yeah. They all love
but
Trump.
the man that doesn't hate anybody who likes them all is Donald Trump. He's the guy. He's the center of the universe, right?
Yes.
Around which they all revolve.
Yes.
Yeah, and his motive is retribution. So there's another Bannon story that you have in the book about Trump is talking to Bannon about Volodymyr Zelensky, who's coming to visit him,
Yes.
the Ukraine president. And Bannon is giving advice on how Trump should treat Zelensky, and Bannon does not like him.
Yeah, so and none of this had been previously reported. I certainly didn't know it at the time. I discovered it as I was, doing my reporting for this book. But we all remember that February meeting in the Oval Office, the conflict. I mean, it was just like unlike anything we had ever seen, with Trump and Vance, berating Zelensky, and Zelensky leaving without signing that deal. Remember, they were supposed to sign a deal on natural resources. And what I learned is that before that meeting was Friday. On Monday, Trump had a meeting with his national security team in that same room that Scavino was describing, that dining room off the Oval Office. And all the national security. By the way, it's interesting. A lot of the national security meetings happen in the Oval Office or the dining room, but not in the Situation Room. It seems like the Situation Room.
Warren Boebert now.
Yeah, that's more of a lower, Boebert and Kash Patel and Pam Bondi to talk
Jeffrey
about
Epstein.
Yeah.
That's right.
So the national security stuff is not in the Situation Room. It's up in anyway. So they're all there. J.D. Vance is there. Mike Waltz, the national security advisor, there. Hegseth is there. Rubio, Bessent is there. J.D. Vance. They're all there, talking about the Zelensky meeting. Zelensky's visit has not been announced. He hasn't been formally invited. There are rumors that it might be happening, but they're talking about whether or not to go through with this, and they're talking about this natural resources deal. And Trump doesn't like what he's hearing. He thinks he basically wants Ukraine just to open up whatever this war-torn country has left and give it to the United States to repay, all the aid the United States has given. So he doesn't like what he's hearing. And he knows Bannon hates Zelensky. And he knows that Bannon hates this deal. So he asks Mike Waltz to get Bannon on the phone, and ask the national security guy to get the right-wing podcaster on the phone.
White House operator.
Yeah.
Well, he's soon to be deposed as a result of Laurel Loomer. So
yeah, there you go.
That's another whole thing. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So Bannon is doing his podcast, which is on for 4 hours a day, by the way. So it's not surprising that you call at any given time that he's going to be on. So Bannon puts him to voicemail with, "I'm on the air. I'll call you when we're off." And Trump doesn't accept that answer. So he says, Trump takes his own phone out and he calls Bannon. And Bannon now, of course, has to answer, sends his show to commercial break, and disappears for the next half hour. Trump puts it on speakerphone. I just love the image of this. So you're in there, you have your entire national security team there, and you've got, and there's a phone, an iPhone on the table on speaker, with Bannon now like basically lecturing the team. I hear you don't like this, Steve. Why is that? And then Bannon starts talking about, well, that punk Zelensky, you can't trust him. And if you make this deal with him, that punk Zelensky is going to want security guarantees and you're going to get drawn in. You can't. And he goes on and on and on. I learned of this in my reporting. I have since talked to multiple people that were in the room. I have like a blow by blow account of this meeting. It ends. And, by the end of the week, we have what happened in the Oval Office, very much the tone set for it by Steve Bannon in this meeting with the national security team.
Yeah. You yourself have a complicated relationship with Trump, covering him. He recently, denounced you, and then what happened? What's going on with?
Yeah, what's that?
First, about you and Trump.
First, it is complicated. So first, I've known the guy for 31 years. I'm not saying we've been like, I've been out like, he doesn't drink, so I wouldn't say drink, but it hasn't been a complete, 31, but I first met him 31 years ago when I left the glories and the intellectual rigor of the New Republic to go to work for the New York Post. It's a typical path, right? And you know, the New York Post was Trump's favorite paper, and I got to know him over that. And you know, and obviously he comes to the White House. I'm now the president of the White House Correspondents Association. I have to deal with him in that capacity, as well as my capacity covering all of this stuff. And I'd covered the campaign, you know, all of that. So I know him well. And he's gotten really, really angry at me many times over the years. And he's also praised me like many times over the years, like at random moments. I remember I did an interview with him backstage at a campaign rally in 2018 when he was campaigning for Ron DeSantis to become governor of Florida. And after the interview, Trump walks me in to meet DeSantis, who I'd actually never met before.
Mm-hmm.
And Ron and Casey DeSantis were there, and he introduces me to him. This is the great Jonathan Karl of ABC News. And we had just had this like, you know, clash of an interview. So he will go from screaming at me, calling me a third-rate reporter, calling me a nasty guy. He's called me a real scumbag. He said of me that I work so hard, but I have so little talent that I'm never going to make it. All this stuff. But he will then still talk to me, and he will sometimes call me, or if I call him, I mean, I could try him now. There's a decent chance he'll pick up the phone.
You could do it on our podcast.
Absolutely. What's stopping you, John? Come on.
Yeah.
This is the court of history.
You guys don't want to platform him, do you? No, I mean, it's an unusual relationship. And look, I view my job as different than you guys. I'm a reporter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't take sides. I don't express my opinions. I report the facts. And he's the president, and I've always treated him with respect, but he hasn't liked when I've reported those facts because I've been rather blunt in reporting what those facts are. So,
yeah, well, the book contains a lot of those facts, and there are more that you report, on ABC. But let me ask you one last question about what's going on now.
Yeah.
And you talked about Boris Epshteyn, but now there's Jeffrey Epstein, or Epstein, who's in the news, a very close former, a late friend of Donald Trump. And Trump seems, in the White House, panicked. What are you picking up right now?
Well, it's very strange, and I haven't really, frankly, figured it out. But there are many layers of oddity to all of this. First of all, as you guys have spoken about and know, the whole drumbeat to release the so-called Epstein files was driven by Trump's allies. I mean, this was not something that the Democrats were beating the drums on. And then, you know, Trump entirely pulls the plug first on Pam Bondi and then releasing it from the Justice Department. But then this discharge petition that has now finally succeeded once they got around to swearing in Congresswoman Grijalva. Trump has gone to such extraordinary lengths to stop that discharge petition, as you know, well documented, you know, the meeting with Boebert in the Situation Room, directly himself, because that was with Bondi and Kash Patel, but directly calling Boebert and then trying to reach Nancy Mace, who actually doesn't immediately pick up. So he's like, to get their names off the discharge petition. And the reason why I say it's strange is, in a way, it's all meaningless. Because even if the House votes, which now it seems like they will, to release the Epstein files, the bill, I mean, how a bill it has to go to the Senate. And I mean, I'm told that from the Republican leadership in the Senate that there's absolutely no intention to bring it up in the Senate. And there are no discharge petitions in the Senate. You know, but maybe it will. I mean, maybe it'll pass so overwhelmingly in the House that it passes in the Senate, but then it still needs to be signed into law by the president.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, why would he? I mean, he's not going to sign it. And then if he vetoes it, I mean, I guess it could be overridden, but do we really think the Republicans are going to go to that level to override? So I don't understand what he's afraid of. One person who I kind of trust to kind of understand some of the motivations and what's going on over there said to me that really his motivation here, specifically on this discharge petition and this latest thing, is that he is so angry at Thomas Massie, the Republican from Kentucky, who has been pushing this, that he so detests this guy because he's one Republican in the House who is absolutely doesn't respond at all to Trump's pressure, that he just doesn't want to give him a chance to have a win. But I don't know. I mean, it's bizarre. There's much more that's bizarre, but we could do a whole nother podcast on that.
Yeah.
Well, and we hope to do that sometime in the future with you, John.
Yes,
and I know
absolutely.
that there will be a fifth books down the line as you're doing your reporting and accumulating incredible stories. And this latest book that you've written, Retribution, there are many, many more stories, fascinating as the ones that you've discussed here in this volume, and people can read it. And we want
the Retribution is not going to be ending anytime soon.
No,
the Retribution it's a book, and it's also going on.
It's a
so
theme.
we want to thank you for participating in the Court of History. This session is adjourned. On behalf of myself and Sean Wilentz, John, we will always consider you a friend of the court, and welcome back. Please subscribe to Legal AF.
Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.